Some doors are meant to stay closed. We often see tombs as treasure chests, waiting to be opened. The allure of gold, priceless artifacts, rewriting history, pulls explorers in. But what if the greatest treasure wasn't inside? What if it was the seal on the door? What if tombs were left untouched, not from fear but from a primal instinct to survive? The ancient world held seen dangers and unseen dangers. The Egyptians mastered their environment and knew some places weren't meant for the living. They sealed chambers to protect the dead and maybe to protect the living. The desert is a patient guardian. It watched empires rise and fall. It kept the Pharaohs' secrets for millennia. Modern explorers arrive with drills and cameras. We break a silence lasting thousands of years. We are intruders in a sacred space. The stories say pharaohs didn't welcome uninvited guests. Legends swirl, tales of powerful curses meant to strike down those who disturbed eternal rest. These are not just campfire tales. They're woven into Egypt's history, a chilling reminder some mysteries might be better left unsolved. The idea of a pharaoh's curse didn't just spring out of nowhere. It's not a modern invention cooked up for Hollywood movies. Its roots are ancient, tangled up in the very real problem of tomb robbing. From the moment the last stone was set in place, these royal tombs were targets. They were banks filled with gold, jewels, precious goods. Tomb robbing was a major industry in ancient Egypt. Entire gangs dedicated themselves to plundering the necropolis, defying the gods and the king for a share of the afterlife's riches. The authorities fought back, of course. They had guards, secret entrances, complex layouts, but their most enduring weapon was fear. These stories of curses were, in a way, the world's first psychological warfare campaign. If you couldn't stop a thief with a lock, maybe you could stop them with a legend. The tales began to spread among the populace. Stories of robbers who entered a tomb only to be struck down by a mysterious illness. Of men who were haunted by vengeful spirits, their lives falling apart piece by piece after their crime. These narratives served a very practical purpose. They created a powerful taboo around the tombs of the elite. It was a way for the pharaohs to extend their authority beyond the grave, protecting their eternal rest with the potent power of superstition. The belief in magic, or Heka, was central to ancient Egyptian life. They believed that words had inherent power, especially written words. A spoken spell could heal the sick, and a carved curse could bring ruin. When this deep-seated belief was combined with the very real, very public consequences of getting caught robbing a tomb, often a gruesome execution, the idea of a supernatural punishment became incredibly believable. The curse was simply the divine version of the state's justice. It promised that even if you evaded the guards, you could never evade the gods. This made the pharaoh's tomb not just a vault, but a sacred and dangerous place. As Egypt's fortunes waned and its ancient culture faded, these stories didn't disappear. Instead, they transformed. They were picked up by Greek writers, Roman writers, who were fascinated by the exotic and mystical land of the Nile. They embellished the tales, adding their own dramatic flair. By the time Western explorers started arriving in the 19th century, Egypt was already shrouded in an aura of mystery and danger. The threats weren't just whispered rumors. They were carved into the tomb walls for all to see. The Egyptians were masters of the written word, and they used their hieroglyphic script to leave unambiguous messages for anyone who might trespass. These weren't vague threats, specific graphic designed to inspire absolute terror. One of the most famous examples comes from the mastaba of Kentika Ikeki, a vizier from the 6th dynasty. His inscription lays out a clear and chilling warning. It speaks of a spiritual judgment, promising that the pharaoh's court in the afterlife would hear the case against any intruder who dared defile his sacred resting place. These inscriptions often detailed exactly what would happen to the transgressor. One common curse formula reads, "As for any man who shall enter this my tomb in his impurity, I shall wring his neck as a bird's." It's a visceral, violent image. Another states, "I shall seize his neck like a goose." These weren't just about spiritual damnation in the next life. They promised immediate physical retribution. The curses invoked powerful gods like Anubis, the guardian of the dead, Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of destruction. They were legal documents. They were religious documents binding contracts of doom intended to be enforced by the most powerful forces in the Egyptian cosmos. For centuries, the idea of a curse was enough. But as science advanced, we began to look for more tangible explanations. Could these ancient legends be rooted in real physical dangers? When you seal a chamber for 3,000 years, you're essentially creating a time capsule. But it's not an inert one. Organic materials left inside, food offerings, wooden furniture, floral arrangements, even the body itself, begin to decay. This process of decomposition, carried out by bacteria and fungi in a low-oxygen environment, can create a cocktail of potentially nasty substances. We're talking about a sealed stone box filled with ancient microbes. One of the prime suspects is toxic mold. Aspergillus niger, Aspergillus flavus, thriving in dark, damp, enclosed spaces. When a tomb is opened, the sudden rush of fresh air can disturb dormant spores, sending them airborne. Scientists in hazmat suit taking air samples inside a newly opened chamber. Inhaling these spores can lead to severe respiratory issues, allergic reactions, and in some cases, serious lung infections, a condition called aspergillosis. The symptoms can mimic pneumonia or bronchitis. To an early 20th century doctor, a mysterious respiratory illness that appeared shortly after entering a tomb might look a lot like a supernatural curse taking effect. It's science masquerading as superstition. Then there's the air itself. The air trapped inside a tomb for millennia would be very different from the air outside. The decay of organic matter would consume much of the oxygen, releasing gases like methane, hydrogen sulfide, and ammonia. Opening a tomb could release a pocket of toxic, low-oxygen air. An explorer might experience dizziness, shortness of breath, or even pass out. It wouldn't be a vengeful spirit striking them down, but simple asphyxiation from a lack of breathable air. Beyond the biological and chemical hazards, we have to consider the native wildlife. The dark, quiet confines of a tomb are an ideal home for some of Egypt's less friendly residents. Egyptian cobra scorpions. An unsuspecting archaeologist, reaching into a dark crevice or lifting a piece of pottery, could suffer a deadly bite or sting. The ancient Egyptians even left warnings about this. In a very real sense, the tombs were booby-trapped by nature itself, providing a perfectly logical explanation for some of the sudden deaths by curse reported in the annals of exploration. History is filled with chilling stories, dramatic tales of what happened when those ancient seals were finally broken. The early days of Egyptology were a bit like the Wild West. Adventurers funded by wealthy patrons descended on the Nile Valley. They were driven by a thirst for fame, thirst for treasure, and safety protocols were often an afterthought. No story embodies the legend of the Pharaoh's curse more than the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, when Howard Carter, funded by his patron George Herbert, the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, located the nearly intact tomb. It was the archaeological find of the century. The world was captivated, but the celebration soon turned to horror. Just a few months after the tomb was opened, Lord Carnarvon was bitten on the cheek by a mosquito. The bite became infected, and he accidentally sliced it open while shaving. Blood poisoning set in, followed by pneumonia. On April 5, 1923, Lord Carnarvon died in Cairo. The timing was almost too perfect. The media frenzy was instantaneous. At the very moment of his death, a massive power outage plunged all of Cairo into darkness. Back in England, at Carnarvon's ancestral home, his dog Susie reportedly let out a howl and died. The story exploded. This was it, the ultimate proof of the curse. Writers like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, a firm believer in spiritualism, publicly declared that Carnarvon's death was caused by elementals or evil spirits created by the ancient priests to guard the tomb. The legend of King Tut's curse was born, and it would become the most famous curse in history. But when we pull back and look at the facts, the story becomes less supernatural. Lord Carnarvon was not a healthy man. He had suffered a severe car accident years earlier that left him with chronic lung problems. This is where the investigator in me gets excited. It's the moment we place the myth under the microscope and see what holds up. The reality is that the legend of the curse and the science of the tomb are not mutually exclusive. They are two sides of the same ancient coin. The myth provides the narrative, the why. The science provides the mechanism, the how. The ancient Egyptians, witnessing people get sick after disturbing a tomb, wouldn't have known about pathogenic fungi or bacteria. They would have interpreted the event through the lens of their culture, attributing it to the supernatural power they believed in. Experts today can give us a clearer picture. Dr. Zahi Hawass, one of Egypt's most famous archaeologists, has opened numerous tombs. He is famously dismissive of the curse as a supernatural phenomenon, but he is acutely aware of the real dangers. He refers to it as the tomb bacteria. He has described how, upon opening a sarcophagus for the first time, a fine, almost invisible powder of microbes can be released. His teams now follow strict protocols, allowing tombs to air out for several hours and wearing protective masks to avoid inhaling anything that has been waiting patiently in the dark for thousands of years. They respect the danger, even if they don't call it a curse. So let's separate the facts from the fiction. Fact: sealed tombs can contain harmful airborne pathogens like mold spores that can cause serious respiratory illness. Fact: the air inside can be stagnant and low in oxygen. Fact: venomous animals can make their homes in the dark passageways. Myth: a vengeful spirit will hunt you down. Myth: cause a citywide blackout. Myth: harm your dog back home. The latter makes for a better movie, but the former is what will actually send you to the hospital. The curse is a prescientific explanation for a very real environmental hazard. The overlap is fascinating. The ancient priests who devised the curses may not have understood microbiology, but they understood cause and effect.